Good afternoon and welcome to another in-person interview where today we are at Fair Trade Long Beach, a communal space for vendors to sell their products. Today's focus, we are going to be talking to KM Cookie and her novel, Song of Hummingbird Highway. The novel follows the story of Terry, a woman who meets the love of her life, travels to the country of Belize, and experiences a multitude of cultures that enable her to re-identify herself as a brand new person. Today we're going to be talking about the intentions behind writing this story. So KM Cookie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, and I love BookBase, and I'm happy to support it.
Oh, you're so nice. Thank you so much. Just going into the right question, the first question, can you share with me the reason you decided to write this novel?
Well, I actually was approaching a milestone birthday, and I had decided my whole life, I said, I'm going to write a book someday. And I said to myself, I better do it or stop talking about it. And so I really sat down, I did all kinds of things, and none of them worked. I tried to write a memoir. It was awful. It was so boring. I went to UCLA and got a certificate in creative writing. I tried all kinds of different things. And finally, what actually turned the corner for me was a book by James Clear, Atomic Habits, that my son recommended that I read.
Yeah.
And that book really helped me to realize that I'm a writer, not somebody who wants to write. And changing that identity changed everything.
Yeah.
And so the book, I finally was able to spend 3 years getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning every morning.
Wow.
My husband will attest, that's what I do. Still work full time and write the book.
Yeah. Why this story about somebody that travels to another country, meets someone, and goes through a story of, re-identifying, redefining who they are? Why that story rather than like any other story you possibly could have written, like a fantasy story, or if you're into like any other genres, why this story in particular?
Well, this story was really it was a love story, but it's a love story about learning to love yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what Terry had to learn. In fact, it gave me goosebumps just now talking about it.
Yeah.
When I was a young woman in my 20s, I came to Los Angeles and I met some people from Belize, and they embraced me and they welcomed me and taught me so many things in so many different ways. Instead of always thinking that the way that I thought about things were right, they taught me different ways of looking at things, and I realized there's a lot of ways you can be right.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted to share that story, and I wanted to share the book actually has a lifetime of lessons that have been sometimes hard won.
Yeah.
And it's really embracing the journey, truth, and connection of every conversation that you can learn from somebody.
Yeah. Do you see Terry inside of you, or the protagonist, after reading about her journey, about her meeting new people, traveling a new world, and understanding different cultures and stuff? How much of that character or Terry is actually you, like thinking the way that Terry also needed to think and like redefine herself?
So absolutely nothing.
Okay.
Just kidding.
I was going to say, okay.
Terry is very much a part of me, and but I had a lot of fun with her.
Yeah.
In going through the lessons of life and being able to learn that maybe I wish I would have learned a little bit quicker and a little bit faster and a little bit easier.
Yeah.
So I feel like her journey really helped me to redefine some of those triggers I think that we all have in our life, and to be able to take anything that can be painful and turn it into something positive. And I love Terry. I love the characters. I had a lot of fun with it, and for sure my journey and my genre of choice is fiction. I love magical realism and I love fiction, and I know it's not that common of a genre, but everything was researched in depth.
Yeah.
And so there's nothing that you'll be able to find in there that didn't have some kind of basis or kernel of truth in it.
Yeah.
And I love the truth, and I love also the way that we can hear the truth through different messages, and you don't necessarily know what they are or hear them until you're ready to hear them.
No, absolutely. I can tell from the introduction and even the bibliography after, where you state all of your points of research that you conducted to make sure that you were being as accurate as possible with everything. I think that shows a lot of depth, because I think also shows a lot of respect for the culture, that you're not just like throwing random stuff in there that you think is what people actually do, but you're actually immersing yourself in the culture and you're doing the research to make sure that it's an authentic representation of what you're actually going for. And I think that's a really good point. I think that's really normal for a lot of people to experience a life lesson and then be like, dang, like I wish I learned that sooner.
Right.
But like the irony is that like if it wasn't for the timing itself, you
Right.
wouldn't have learned the life lesson.
Right.
And that's a very important thing that I've noticed in this book, Song of Hummingbird Highway. There's a lot of moments where you see Terry going through her own tribulations and obstacles, and you're like, dang, like this is just so rough. And then when she gets that moment of like that epiphany of just understanding what's going on and being able to like kind of reflect and change, I'm pretty sure you could even sense that a little bit of that frustration of like, oh my gosh, like why didn't I know this sooner? Why am I knowing this right now when everything is just going wrong? But you see in this book how that's the human struggle. Like that is literally what everybody goes through, right?
Right.
They go through stuff and then they reflect and they're like, oh dang, like I wish I knew this sooner. But it's the obstacle itself that helps you define the solution, to understand how to get past it.
Right, 100%. In fact, Terry is a messy heroine.
Yeah.
And you want her to do things, and she keeps doing the same thing over and over again. She's trying to do it differently, but she makes a lot of mistakes.
Right.
And I think one of the things that I love about her is that she just keeps trying, right? No matter, how terrible it works out, she tries it again.
Yeah.
Yesterday was yesterday, today is today, tomorrow is tomorrow, and let me try again.
Yeah.
And that is, she does represent that growth mindset, and that's one of the things I actually teach in my, day life and for real. And that is about that every obstacle makes you stronger.
Right, absolutely. I know you talked about when you were in your 20s, you immersed yourself in Belizean culture and they took you in and you really felt like you connected yourself with this culture. I wanted to ask, like, besides Belizean culture, you also mentioned in the book, like you also have influence from the Caribbean culture, Mayan culture, the Blackfoot and Garifuna tribes as well. And I just wanted to ask, like, what are some of those lessons or some of those points of connection that you really hold close to your heart when you're thinking about choosing to write a story about these specific cultures?
All of those stories were things that I heard, and they really made an impact on me in my life. I never forgot them. The stories of Anansi, which is kind of like a Brer Rabbit of the Caribbean,
Right.
the things that he does. The stories of the Blackfoot Indian. I love which maybe I didn't say that, but the Blackfoot culture, the songs that they have written like really touched my soul.
Yeah.
And when I heard them, I just felt so at home. And the story that is in the book about Terry, I always thought that I had some Blackfoot blood in me somewhere because of something that an arthritis doctor told me at one point, because I have rheumatoid arthritis.
Got
And the doctor did actually say that well, it's not usually hereditary, because my sister has it as well. And so the doctor said it's not usually hereditary unless you're Blackfoot Indian. And so at that point, I researched it, and there was, so I always thought whether, so sorry.
No, it's okay.
I always thought whether I knew it or not, that I was connected to that culture.
Yeah.
And so just like this story, this place right here at Long Beach Collective, the Fair Trade Collective, all the different little, like dream catchers that they have, and like the spiritual aspect. The stones that I wear, I feel very connected to all of those things. So I wanted to incorporate them into the story because they were all meaningful to me.
Right, absolutely. And it shows. It definitely shows. I think reading the story, as someone that doesn't have a lot of experience in knowing a lot about Belizean culture and like just cultures in the Caribbean, and even for the Blackfoot and Garifuna cultures as well, I didn't know anything. And reading about it, it was really easy to kind of understand some of the stories, like Nancy that you were talking about, you know, reading it for the first time, you know, it was interesting to like see how the dots connect with other stories I remember learning about when I was younger.
Right.
And just seeing that connection, how like, you know, even though cultures are very much distinct and they have their own sense of individuality, there's also a sense of like communal, like it's like a community thing where it's like each tradition, each culture, they have their own version. And you were saying like the Briar Rabbit of like the Caribbean.
Yes.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was really cool to read that. And I think that's why it also helped to make Reynold, the character, such a relatable character, because, you know, he's from a distant land and he's coming here to America to do music and stuff, but he's still very much like relatable as a human being, somebody that has a passion and a drive and feels things heavily. And I wanted to ask also, like, what was it like writing him as a character? Because in the beginning, I thought I knew what type of character he was going to be. And at the end, I was like, no, like this is completely different. Like it was like almost reading two different stories. You have Terry, and then you have Reynold like just doing like some of the, I did not even think that's what happened. And you're like, what the heck? Like, what is going on? I know you said you identify with Terry so much, but what was it like writing him as a character?
Reynold was very hard to write.
Got it. Okay.
And if you notice, I was very, very careful when I wrote that Terry was never in his head, because truthfully, Terry never knew what he was thinking. Right? She always wondered, and she was always trying to interpret what he said by a little bit of words and actions and try and figure out what that meant. And so, but at the same time, she always did understand that he had this love, and it's like almost she loved his love as much as she loved him. And that was an important part of, you know, of what they had together. But they, but Reynold was a hard character to write. I will say that every little piece of dialogue was a challenge, and I had to really get into a different mindset when I was writing his characters. And another thing that was interesting is what happened is to try and capture the Caribbean culture, I actually had a few people that are from the Caribbean, from Belize, read the book. And so I know it's a little bit difficult with the dialect, but they wanted me to put in more. And then I would mix it up in my head, how I was writing. It was very, very challenging writing the dialect. But right now we're in the process of recording the audiobook, and the audiobook has authentic Belizean characters that are saying it. And when I hear them speak it, it's so beautiful.
Oh, that's
awesome.
Awesome.
So it's just how I heard it in my head. So that actually, I know it's a little bit difficult to read the dialect piece of it, but it really, that's an important part of the story, because as much as Reynold is out of his element when he's here, Terry is out of her element when she's there. And it's the same for both of us, for all of us, right? When you're around other people, and we all feel like outsiders sometimes.
No, absolutely. I think Reynold was definitely one of the, like, you know, with the dialect, I think for moments where it was a little bit hard for me, the context of the conversation, I think, was able to help me a lot more. Like if the first person has a very heavy Belizean dialect, you know, the second person responding, if it wasn't as strong, you can understand, okay, wait, it's a conversation about so-and-so, or it's a conversation about what they're doing. But I think it also furthers that idea of authenticity for the story. I mean, if you're gonna write a story about Belizean people, Belizean culture, and the land itself, I think it's fair to also have, you know, the language and the dialect, and have the culture kind of, you know, be there in front of you, even if you have a difficulty understanding it. That's kind of the point, because if you went to Belize and you talked to people there, you would hear that dialect, right?
And for sure.
It's kind of cool. It's like a mini vacation almost, where it's like you're experiencing a new land almost just through reading this. Because like when I first started reading, I was like, what is this guy saying? You know, Reynold is just saying like a bunch of stuff, and I'm like, okay. And then by the end of the book, just because of how I was able to just adapt and understand what these people talk about and how they express themselves through metaphors and like the way that they say things. By the end, I was like, okay, I know what you're saying. Like, okay, I'm a part of this. And that was really cool. I know, like, Reynold, like, as a character, you know, I know you talked about like how he loves heavily, but it kind of seems like a double-edged sword, where, you know, his love guides him to all these places, but it also kind of makes him have to sacrifice things that other people see him as being cruel for. But just because of how he just looks at things, like he just, when he wants something, he goes for it. And I know like the relationship between her, Terry and Renaud, like there's this constant tension of trying to understand where they belong in each other's lives when you're trying to pursue this passion. I wanted to ask, like, do you think experiences like Renaud are important to people, even though it may end in somewhat of a tragedy or even a bad ending sometimes?
100%. I mean, just like we talked about already, you know, the lesson in that book is for sure pain to empowerment. And sometimes it's physical pain, sometimes it's emotional pain, sometimes it's pain for what we couldn't change or do or make right. But at the end of the day, all of those relationships really do add up. And just like there's lessons, and I think in the book you would remember this, is that Terry heard a lot of lessons, but she didn't really hear them until she did. One of the true stories, and this is something that did happen to me, is it was actually a true story of what happened with, on the plane with Scott Peck. So Scott Peck is the author of The Road Less Traveled. And when I was in my 20s and I had just recently went through a breakup, I was riding on the plane and somebody had actually stolen a ring that I had. And somebody that I thought was my friend, and they stole it, and then they felt bad about it and gave me a pawn ticket to get the ring out of pawn, and it cost $200, which, I mean, this was a lot of years ago. I'm a little bit older than you. And I was telling the story to Scott Peck as I was sitting there, and I didn't know who he was. I didn't even know he was an author or that I wanted to be an author. We didn't have any conversation. And he literally took $200 out of his wallet, and he said, I've been blessed with abundance, and I think you need this more than I do. And he gave me $200 just out of the blue like that. And $200 was a lot of money back then.
Right.
And
I mean, it still is. I mean, if someone gives me $200, I'm having a great day.
Yeah, and he gave that to me, and he gave me the book. He signed the book. And I read it, and I didn't really understand it. And that book is exactly about the same thing. It's about the pain to empowerment, about growth through adversity. But it was just his version of that. And I didn't really understand it, but you know, now I'm I'm an expert in it, in that topic. But I wasn't ready to hear that message then. And now I am, and I'm ready to share that message to other people who may, you know, maybe they hear it now, or maybe they hear it sometime down the line. But you know, it's my story to share.
Yeah, absolutely. I work with children. I work at a school, and you know, every time I work with a child that like does something, I'm always telling them, hey, don't do this. You're gonna get hurt. The classic, like, don't climb too fast. Be careful where you're going. You might hurt yourself. And I remember my mom always telling me the same thing. And I remember as a kid, you know, I'm like, you're too safe. Like, I don't care. I want to explore. And then, like, you know, you hurt yourself, and then, you know, you always hear the classic line, like, I told you so, like, this was going to happen. But it's like, you know, I know this like more of a literal sense, but pain for empowerment, it's like once you experience that pain, then you're like, oh, okay, like,
now I hear the lesson.
I hear the lesson. That makes sense. And it's the same thing now. Like, I work at a school, and I'll tell a kid, like, hey, like, don't eat too fast. You're gonna get a stomach ache. But they love peanut butter jelly sandwiches, and so they'll just keep on eating. And I'm like, okay. And then, you know, 10 minutes later, they come to me, oh, Mr. Nathan, like, I'm not feeling good. I ate too much. And I'm like, what did I tell you? And they're like, I know. And now the next time they're eating a little bit slower, not eating as much. And, you know, there's just something about it. It's like you can read every powerful message that the world has for you in the first like 10 years of your life if you really wanted to. Like, you could literally have a book full of it, read the whole thing, but none of that will really stick until you experience something that makes the words connect. And I like how your story, one thing that it promotes is patience and the idea of forgiveness, even though you don't learn a lesson that you wanted to learn immediately. I think the gratitude of just eventually learning it is the most important thing, right? Like, it doesn't matter if you learn it after the first time or the second time or the third time. If you learn it after like the 100th time, you should still take yourself in grace, because, you know, it could have been more attempts of like struggling and trying to find it. And I really liked how with Terry, she kind of does that to herself, and her friends really do that, like Penelope and her friends.
I love Penelope.
I love Penelope too. She was so awesome. But she's such a crucial character that, when you're reading the book, she's only like in a couple chapters. She's not very, she doesn't show herself too often, but every time she does, it's like Terry is almost like at a lecture almost, where she's learning from another person and she's seeing someone that's also had her own struggles give that word of advice to Terry. And in the beginning, it's like you see Terry kind of resisting because she's just like, I don't know what to do, I don't care. And then after, when she talks to Penelope after her journey, you see more maturity in the way that she reacts to Penelope's words. And you see how that character, which is her friend, being a compass to see how is Terry gauging herself.
Right.
And I thought that was a really great way to like kind of, say something without having to directly say, Terry is more mature, or like Terry is so much better. It's her conversations where you're starting to understand like, oh, she's more complete as a person.
Right. She's able to have more authority and more discussions that show it without telling it. Right. Just like the classic thing, show not tell.
Exactly, right. And it's like one of the, it's one of those virtues of life where it's like some things you don't have to just tell people. You can just show it off. Like actions speak louder than words. And I know we're talking about, life and experiencing what life has for us, but I also wanted to ask you a question that is about the first half of the book, because it centers around the funeral of Renaud's brother. And I did definitely notice that there was a lot of emphasis on the 9-night ceremony, a lot of emphasis on the idea of death and what it really means to die suddenly, or what does it mean to live and not achieving something that you want in life. And I just wanted to ask, like, what does that process mean for you in terms of the 9-night ceremony and the reason you had that so clear in this book?
Well, that was another thing that I thought was really important to just to share. I always, when I met my Belizean friends and I was around their culture, the way that they celebrated, I shouldn't say celebrate, the way that they went through a death experience was so different than the way I had done it or the way Americans had done it. At that point, people would just, if somebody passed, they would be rushed into all of the details, and then they would do it, and then everything would be over, and then they'd just be by themselves. This was such a beautiful way of everybody would come. It was a community event. You would talk, you would cry, and you would laugh, and you would celebrate, and you would eat, and it was just, even now I'm getting goosebumps again, like telling the story. And then all the way to the end where where they would go through and put the dirt onto the the ground. It was just, every single piece of it I thought was just so beautiful, and it was so tangible how to deal with grief, and I really wanted to share that because I just thought it just made a real impact on me, and I wanted to share that tradition because it's so different than the way how I looked at it. And then you're right, it is a theme about death and life, and the choices that we make, and as we know, everything can change at a moment's notice. And all of that is a theme because in the story, Terry really is trying to make the most of her life, and I think that is a thread through as far as one of the themes. Yeah,
absolutely. There's a quote that I had to jot down because or two quotes that I really enjoyed reading about this. The first one was, the Caribbean observance of mourning speaks to something deeper than the rushed American approach, with its focus on arrangements and surface details, hurrying to move past hurt. And there's another quote that says, here, grief takes room to breathe, allowing everyone their moment to remember, to feel, and to honor. And I think that's really important because you're right. We live in a society where I do feel like a lot of things are rushed. We don't have we don't prioritize the timing to feel things as much as we'd like prioritizing the efficiency of it instead.
Right.
Of course, everybody grieves, everybody feels emotions that are sometimes negative, but it's always, hey, like, don't worry about it too much. Maybe give yourself a couple days if you need it, but you got to get back to work. You have to do errands. You have to do, you have to go to the store, and you have to do all these things. And you're right, like you go to other worlds where there is a lot more emphasis on grieving and actually acknowledging the negative emotions that come with some of the things that life gives us. And it's so weird. Like you're literally sitting down here like, is this normal? Like, is it okay to really feel this much? And it's, yeah, that's more natural than how we express things.
Right.
And it's funny that like you go to another culture and you see how everything's so spread out and you're like, oh my gosh, like why is it taking so long? But I feel like it should be the reverse for us. Like, why are we doing things so quickly?
And one of the things too that I really was captivated by is not just the sadness and the crying, but the laughter and the joy of it, of really celebrating somebody's life, not just being sad for yourself that they're leaving, but what did they give you? And you know, it was like equal parts laughter and sadness.
Yeah, sharing the
And I
stories.
thought that was something too that was really meaningful.
Yes, absolutely. No, I think that's great. I think it's, you know, I feel like if you were to laugh at somebody's funeral or like, you know, share something and it makes you kind of show emotions of joy, some people might see it as like disrespect, like why are you so happy in a moment where everyone is sad? But I agree with you. I think honoring somebody not just through like the sadness that you're getting from their loss, but also, you know, the lessons and the memories and the happiness that you get from somebody, even if they're not with you, you know, for them to still be with you at some point in time, it just kind of respects them further. Like where it's like, you know, you're not just a sad memory for me.
Right.
You're actually an honorable, happy moment that I show gratitude towards, and I allow that to change me for the better. And it's just a healthier outlook on it. And yeah, I definitely saw that, and I appreciate it because I think COVID did that a little bit, where like everything just stopped. And all of a sudden you see conversations about mental health and how people go about life. But, you know, I do think we're still struggling to kind of be a lot more patient and a lot more understanding for people that are going through a lot of pain. But, no, and you know, I think another aspect of the ceremonies that I really liked was the music. You know, the fact that if there was, like, yes, there were moments of silence, but there were also moments of contemplation during these rituals where people would be singing, and you can tell that they're giving their energy into it. They're vocalizing not only the lyrics, but the emotion behind it, which is the grief and the laughter, the joy, the solace that you get from being around other people. And I wanted to ask, like, what does music mean to you, and how do you think it emphasized the story with everything that you've been trying to share with this book?
So music was a really critical component of the story.
Yeah.
I don't know how to play one single instrument, but I am a professional music listener. Okay, I really love music. My husband and I go out on the deck every Friday night and we watch music videos, and I really love music over genres, over eras, not just one particular time. So I hope that that came through in the book.
It did.
And the music was a backdrop, the emotion of the truth of, in all the songs. I think, if anything, what they had in common was a truth to them. And one of the cultural collaborators, which was like my primary one, her name is Misha Steele, and she wrote a few original songs in the book. And one of them was My Guide, and if you remember, that was so beautiful because it was in the Garifuna language, and then it was translated in English, and the song itself is just a really beautiful piece. And then also I'll put out a little reveal, is that at the very end, that song, the song that's at the end of the book, she is recording that, and we're going to be releasing that too, along with the audiobook.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's beautiful. So the songs themselves and the music were so important because Terry really felt that music and that connection to Ronaldo was probably more through music than talking. And that was when Ronaldo was playing or writing a song, that was when Terry connected with him the most. And that, in a way, the music represented their relationship in a way. And then the music also helped her to move past it when she needed to.
Right. Yeah, it was like a soothing, it's like medicine.
Yes.
Almost. Like you take it and it doesn't erase the pain, but it soothes it through realizing that like whether it's through the lyrics or through the community that you're singing with, that you're not alone, and that this is normal to feel pain or to feel a change in your life and not really understand it all the time. Music, I think, is one of those beautiful forms of art where it's very clear, but depending on what music you listen to, I think there are many, many examples where it's about change in life, losing something, gaining something, understanding oneself to a higher degree. And I think that's why art in this book kind of just, through music, it just speaks so loudly, because you see the reflection immediately, where it's like you see Terry or Renaud go through something. There's a song in a couple pages that just kind of reflects what's going on in the story. It's like a virtual bookmark almost, because I was reading the online version, but it's like, for me, it was like a way for me to kind of understand, like, okay, this is what's going on, because the music always reflected what these characters were feeling, thinking, and going through. And I really enjoyed it, and I'm really excited that it's going to be in the audiobook with that song. That audiobook is going to be one heck of a audiobook for sure.
It is really fun, honestly, because I have authentic characters. So I'm going to be the narrator and Terry. And then I have a Belizean man, Bert McCoy, is going to be Renaud. I have Misha Steele is going to be Malkia. I have Tanya Henley, who is from the South, is Penelope. And I have Roni Figueroa, who is the Garifuna wise person and the Mayan wise person. So anyways, it's really fun to listen to it.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. When is it coming out?
I'm just only in the second draft, so it's going to be about 12 hours. So we've got it all recorded, but now we're working on editing, and it's very painstaking.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. But I mean, anything that's worth creating takes time.
Yes.
And no, that's going to be awesome. I can't wait for that.
And then another thing that I really love, you mentioned the music. So we've spoken about the music and we've spoken about the words, but also the art, that's the photographs at the beginning of each chapter, because I really wanted to integrate the art, music, and words.
Yeah.
And so some of those photographs are from a collaborator in Belize, so they're like literally from Belize.
Wow.
Yeah. So I wanted to try and include as many different ways that I could, so that it really captured, what that country is like.
Oh, absolutely. No, you captured, just from the way that you described what Terry was seeing, to what we talked about earlier with the dialects of the people that were talking, to the food, the ceremonies, even going to the jungle and like seeing different animals, hearing different sounds. It honestly felt like a vacation. I was like, oh my gosh, this sounds so nice. So I know we talked about this before, but the fact that you're going back there with your friends, like, I think that's going to be a really cool trip.
Yeah, it is.
You're just able to experience that.
And she read the book and she wants to go too, because
that's cool. Yeah. That's really cool. No, I feel like this should be on like every brochure for Belize. Like, it should be in every plane for anybody that's traveling. Like, hey, you should go check out Belize, read this book, because you'll definitely want to go. But yeah, we're approaching our last question, and this one was one of my favorite ones I wanted to ask you, because I'm so curious to hear what you have to say. But after everything we've discussed with the book, having it start from a conversation about Terry to the inclusion of music in one's life, what advice do you have for someone trying to redefine themselves the way that Terry is trying to do in the book?
I think the best advice is to listen to what your heart is telling you and keep trying. And I think the main thing that can hurt us, with any of us, is if you just, as the old saying, if you try to do the same thing and expect different results.
Yeah.
So at the end, Terry it was really about Terry finding how to love herself, because how can someone else love her if she doesn't love herself?
Right.
And that was probably the most important message, is if you want something to change, then you have to change yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you for that. I think sometimes people say follow your heart, and like that's so scary, because it's like, that's why I really believe like it's good that we have a brain and a heart, because I feel like sometimes logic kind of mitigates some of the passion that I feel like your heart can kind of give you, and you kind of get yourself into like sticky situations because you love something so much to where it's really hard to let go. But I really like the grace and like what you were saying, because I do believe that like one's heart is in a sense of like a personal compass. It doesn't tell you exactly where you're going like a GPS system, but it does tell you if you're heading in a good direction.
Right.
I don't know if your heart will be able to tell you what exactly specifically is the problem, but I definitely know that your heart will tell you if you wake up one day and you're feeling good about yourself, or you feel like today is going to be a really exciting moment in your life. Your heart will tell you that you're doing something good for yourself. And like, you know, vice versa, if you are doing something that you know is stressing you out or giving you such, you know, problematic emotions, your heart will also tell you like, hey, I'm tired, or I'm hurting, or something is just really bothering you, or bothering me, and it's like, you know, we gotta do something about it. And I think that in this book, you know, one thing that, you know, you see Terry trying to essentially give her heart to other people, trying to say, hey, I need value. I need you to help me find this value because I don't have it in myself. I have a troubled past with my family. I can't get a proper partner. I don't know where I belong. My friends sometimes don't even act like my friends. Like, what is going on? And I feel like that struggle is such a universal one for a lot of people living in today's time. And I feel like the instinct is, okay, I just need to find the right person to give my heart to, and I'll be good.
Right.
And then at the end of the book, like, you realize that like the solution was always there, which was Terry herself.
Right.
That you weren't supposed to give your heart out. You were supposed to see value in keeping it with you.
Right.
And you would find.
And then when you give it out,
Yeah.
it means something different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely.
Well, my favorite quote in the book, or one of my favorite perspectives, is when Terry asks herself, am I 51% happy or 49%? That's an important question to ask ourselves any day,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And if I'm staying in that 49%, more than 51% or more, then
Yeah.
maybe I need to think about it. And
Right.
that's like a really concrete way to look at whatever you're trying to do, to see what your heart is telling you.
Yeah. Another quote that really helped me as well was when they were talking about wisdom. And in the book, you write, the wisdom within, scattered to every corner of the world, carried by the wind to all creatures great and small. That is why the elders say no one holds all wisdom, but everyone holds some. And if you listen carefully to the stories around you, you might gather a piece of ancient wisdom yourself.
Oh, that just gave me goosebumps.
No, yeah, it gave me goosebumps reading it because it's so true. Like you feel like, you know, if you want to learn something or if you want to gain better experience at something or be better, you have to go always to the best examples of things. But the reality is that you can learn something from a little kid just as much as you can learn something from an old person. And it's not about age, it's about experiences, it's about individuality and understanding that the more open you are to the world, the more the world will be open to you and share the secrets that, like, you know, we sometimes look for. But no, this was a great book. Thank you so much for not only sharing this with us, but also sitting down to talk to us about this novel. I think this is such a great book that talks about a culture that I don't feel like a lot of people talk about. Yeah, I believe is one of the most beautiful things that I have read so far. So for those that are interested in Belizean culture, for those that want to read a good love story, and for those that just want to enjoy a good book, Song of Hummingbird Highway is definitely a good book. And KM Cookie, thank you so much for coming here to share with us your story, for why you wrote it, and some of the things that you implemented to make this story special. It really means a lot.
Thank you so much. And I also really appreciate that you're a man and you like the book, because everybody thinks it's only for women.
No, it's not.
And it really isn't, right?
No.
Or wasn't meant, or I never wrote it with that idea. Yeah, because it's really about finding yourself, and anybody can find that.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, not once did I think that it was just for women. I think it's a universal book because it's about a universal topic, which is finding yourself.
Right.
But yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Hi, I'm KM Cookie. I'm the author of award-winning Song of Hummingbird Highway. I hope you can check it out on BookBase. My good friends.